I love when stories have these really over-the-top, overpowered power systems, right? Especially in fantasy, because you can take magic extremely far. But then you have a main character that has none of that. They have no magic, no powers, they're just an average person, but yet they're still considered one of the scariest and the most overpowered in the universe. Thank you to Mignotone, TJ, and Azuri M for supporting me directly on Patreon. I do have a weekly podcast there, so go check it out. Link is in the description. The Journey of a Dark Elf with Fading Powers. I talked about it recently, how I wanted to read it. I went and read it. And let me tell you, I've had a fantastic time with it. It's only 8 chapters currently, still relatively new. It's a monthly, but it's incredibly fun. It follows a story of a dark elf called Amira, who originally was known as the most powerful individual in this universe using magic. She could literally do everything. She's over 1,000 years old, and over the centuries that she has lived, she has been dominating in battle and has never really lost. But sometime during those 1,000+ years, she vanished. She disappeared, like the Avatar, and no one heard from her for hundreds of years. Until her friends started to look for her, Lilacina, someone that is also incredibly powerful, a special grade sorcerer who controls space and time. Almost an equal to Amira. She goes looking, and when she finds her and offers her a job to teach at this school for up-and-coming sorcerers and witches, she's kind of surprised. Not only does Amira now have zero magic whatsoever, her attitude has completely changed, but she's still incredibly competent and still overpowered. Now, how is she overpowered, you may ask? She has no magic anymore. She's not as strong as she used to be. That is true. But there's a couple of instances early in this story where you start to see what Amira has been doing over the 1,000-odd years that she's been alive and the handful of centuries that she's had zero magical power. She's been going on a journey. She's been traveling. She's been learning about the world and picking up a lot of normal activities. Learning how to cook, learning how to build things, and training in martial arts. So of course, a way to defend herself in these travels and to try and hunt for food, she spent centuries fighting, brawling, getting stronger and stronger to the point where she's pretty much of equal caliber to someone with full-fledged abilities. Let me just say, it is as cool as you think it is. A big part about this story that I think a lot of Frieren fans will love is Amira's attitude towards the world. It's similar to Frieren in the sense that it's the same journey, wanting to experience the world, learn new things, meet new people, but on the opposite side, it is a character that is very bright and bubbly and is learning to adapt to this new world without magical powers. So Amira craves and yearns to learn new things. She learned how to cook and hunt over the years incredibly well. She's experienced a lot of new places and people, and she's really just enjoying this journey. It's a rebirth for herself. A little bit through the story, she even tackles in crafting her own staff. Now, she doesn't actually need one, but it does look good for someone with her type of reputation that has suddenly reappeared after so long to still kind of keep up to appearance with some sort of magical utensil. Now, you can buy these typically pre-made from a store, or you can get them specially crafted. And there's different tiers to these staffs. I love the emphasis that goes into the craftsmanship for these staffs because they feel like incredibly special weapons. And when you read the story, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because when some of these sorcerers get into battle, their staff actually changes. It goes from like a typical normal looking staff that is bedazzled to something that is insane in evolution. It grows, it feeds, it changes and morphs into a completely different shape, and it allows them to excel far beyond their limitations. For the uptick in fantasy stories that I have been reading, I really like this approach. It gives a bit of flair and character to the staff design itself and the importance of what the staff actually is. You can think of an endless amount of stories that use staffs, magical equipment. But can you really think of a story that puts emphasis on the creation of that staff, the tiers of it, the way it evolves, the way it adapts to its user, and even legendary magical equipment, stuff that costs way too much money or there's only been a handful ever made in the universe? Lilacina, for example, is wielding a staff that is no longer available. It's incredibly rare, not a lot of people have a version of it, nor the blacksmith that created the staff hasn't been seen in a very long time. Amira gets really into it. She really wants to create her own little magical tool or staff that is entirely her own. But then she also has this obsessive attitude of trying to make it as perfect as possible. So she knows nothing about crafting a staff, and she gets a little bit disheartened and kind of dramatic about not being able to perfect it the first time around. But she spends a little bit more time with professionals and the actual craftsmen that are putting in a ton of work to make these things legitimate and possible, and she learns. And before you know it, she's out here crafting her own tool, her own magical staff that looks absolutely superb and is considered a one of one. Mind you, this is not normal. Sorcerers and witches don't just create their own staffs. So Amira, even without magical energy that can't even technically use it, is kind of one of the first to tackle this type of task. Another big selling point for this story for me is Amira's personality. She's incredibly old, and you get two different sides of her. Snippets of what she was like with her magical power, being this incredibly powerful, and seems kind of bored with the world. There's nothing that can really stop her. There's nothing that can compete with her. There's no real challenge. Because she's learnt pretty much every magic to ever exist, there's no real love for the world. And you can kind of see it with how she talks to people, how she acts, and just comes across really down about it. When she disappears and loses her magic, she has a completely different mindset. She's almost free to experience the world all over again. She's happy from a completely different lens and learning how to adapt and evolve and just to try new things. And the energy that comes with that is really intoxicating. She has this real bright and bubbly personality. Obviously, it comes with a ton of personal experience, being one of the most powerful sorcerers to exist, but there's a new level of confidence, charm that never breaches into the territory of being like disrespectful or cocky in a way. She is just very ambitious and really wants to try and do her best for all of these new things that she can experience. I can't reiterate how intoxicating that type of reading is. Creating a character in this position can be a little bit tricky because there's a lot of prior things you have to balance, and the story relies on the fact that there's a lot of unknown prior to Amira losing her powers. You don't see a lot of what she was like in her most powerful state or even the handful of wars that she's gone through, but you have other characters that reference it. So it's this very peculiar juggling act that you have to do to not show too much early on within the story to give away, I guess, the appeal that Amira currently has, which is the bright and bubbly, fresh personality. For a story that only has 8 chapters currently, I believe it's a monthly, got its serialization through a competition where fans could vote for it. So that's how it got its start. The story and artwork, I think, is genuinely ridiculous. On the story side, I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to fantasy manga. I've mentioned it pretty much in every single video, and I will continue to mention it because I have such a low bar of experience with fantasy stories. I get bored of them very easily, and I tend to click off them. So reading Frieren, reading Dungeon Meshi, reading Witch Hat Atelier, I'm like, wow, these are great stories. I really enjoy them. I like how they're written. I like power systems or the magic systems in them. I like the world, the art style, but they're already very established. There's a lot of work that's gone into all of them, big communities, etc. This one I was a little bit skeptical on because it's just a new fantasy manga that I hadn't seen a lot of people talking about, and I'm already sold on it. Like, that's how easy it is. If you have a charming character with an interesting premise and a really curious staff, magic system, power system, like, yeah, there's a high chance I'm going to be sold on it. On the art side, I'm going to say it, this story genuinely outshines a lot of others. And I say that with the utmost respect, but artistically, it is ridiculous that this author or this artist, I believe, is relatively new. I could be wrong. It was a little bit difficult to find like their previous catalog. Just artistically alone, beautiful. Like, it's not the most revolutionary thing you've seen in the sense of stylization. Like, you're not going into a fantasy world that you've never seen before, but what you are going into is a fantasy world that is so insanely depicted. Like, the detail, the finesse, the scale, the scope, the design philosophy for its staffs, the jewels, everything is drawn with such care and precision and so meticulously designed to really invoke the best of best artistically when it comes to how you feel towards it. When you see a panel, you will sit there in awe for a long time and be like, wow, how is this possible? Or when you see the amount of detail that goes into every nook and cranny of staff designs or clothes designs or character designs, you're like, yep, this is artistically beautiful. It is gorgeous. All of the 8 chapters that I've read, beautifully drawn. Some crazy moments in there, some really interesting ideas and depictions of certain things, and I love it. Now, because I am expanding my horizons for fantasy stories, my word might not really mean all too much. Oh, you haven't read a lot of fantasy stories, so maybe you don't really know what's good. Fair enough. But I will say you may as well give it a chance and check it out regardless. It won't take up too much of your time, and I promise you, you will have a blast with it. Doesn't take itself too seriously. It's pretty fun. The main character, Amira, is very lovable. She's very whimsical. She's goofy and chaotic. And then when she locks in, she locks in. Hand-to-hand combat, fighting against other magical powers that just seems absurd. It can sometimes be a gimmick that goes too over the top and loses its appeal, or a gimmick that works incredibly well to enhance the story further than you would ever think. Journey of a Dark Elf with fading powers 100% does it well. If you're into fantasy stories, if you're into Freerun, if you're into Dungeon Meshi, Witch Hat Atelier, I 100% recommend this story. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. It is worth your time. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. It supports me directly and I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you to Patreon and YouTube members. You mean the world to me, and I will see you all later. Mwah.